Hello and welcome back. I'm Joshua Barnes and you're watching NewsX World. Let's first take a look at our top stories. According to Iranian media, Iran, Britain, France and Germany have agreed to hold talks regarding Tehran's nuclear program. This follows warning from the three nations about the potential reimposition of international sanctions. The specifics of the timings and location for the discussion is still being finalised. The Kremlin says that Russia is ready to move quickly on a peace deal with Ukraine, but emphasised that its primary goal is to achieve its objectives, which have not changed. Kremlin spokesman reiterated President Putin's desire for a peaceful resolution, although he acknowledged that the process will be long and difficult. A tsunami warning has been issued after three major earthquakes struck off the Pacific coast of Russia on Sunday. The tremors, including a magnitude 7.4 quake and two 6.7 quakes, hit in the region. The quakes occurred within 32 minutes of each other, with a 5.0 magnitude tremor reported earlier. Israel has issued new evacuations in Deir el-Balah as it steps up ground movements in this region of the Gaza Strip. Israeli military action has intensified as further Palestinian deaths are reported around aid sites in the enclave. Meanwhile, anti-government protesters in Israel have marched to the US Embassy in Tel Aviv, demanding an immediate hostage deal and an end to the war in Gaza. Former hostage Doron Steinbrecher takes part in the march as ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas stall. Former Labour Minister Kim Moon-soo has announced his candidacy for the leadership of the main opposition People Power Party following his loss to President Lee Jae-myung on the June the 3rd presidential election. Kim stated that his decision was driven by the need to restore the party and regain public trust. Syria's interior minister says that violent clashes in the Druze majority city of Sueda have halted after reports of further unrest. Israel and Syria have agreed to a US-brokered ceasefire after Israeli military action following the sectarian violence. Hong Kong has issued a T10 hurricane signal, the highest warning as Typhoon Whipper heads closer to Hong Kong. Hundreds of flights have been cancelled with a considerable threat as winds could reach 140 kilometres per hour. We start this hour in Europe as Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has said that Russia is ready to move quickly towards peace in Ukraine, but stressed that its primary goals remain unchanged. Peskov also said that President Vladimir Putin has repeatedly expressed his desire to see a peaceful settlement, but admitted that a process is long and difficult. The Kremlin's comments come as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky earlier announced that Kyiv had formally sent Moscow a proposal for a new round of peace talks next week. So far, the two sides have held 2 rounds of talks in Istanbul in recent months, agreeing only on prisoner exchanges with no major breakthrough towards ending the war. Well, joining us to discuss these latest comments from the Kremlin, of course, in the wake of the overnight comments from Volodymyr Zelensky, Glenn Grant, ex-advisor to the Ukrainian Defence Minister, joins us live from Riga, Latvia. Glenn, as always, it is a pleasure to have you on the programme. I want to first look at these Russian comments. The Kremlin saying that they're ready to move forward at a fast rate with peace, but aren't necessarily willing to change their objectives. Is there some almost contradictory element to this statement, given the stalemates that we've seen so far?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right in terms of sort of contradictory, because what Putin means by moving forward quickly is that he wants Ukraine to capitulate, which of course it's not. And the other thing is that you know, Putin's words are largely for the American audience, not for Ukraine at all. And he wants to try and convince the American audience that that Russia is the good guy in this, and they want peace as quickly as possible. But you're right, contradictory, because the second bit is they're not going to change. They either get the whole of Ukraine or they just keep fighting, and so it's in many ways it's just a nonsense to listen to what Putin says, because it's meaningless. There is nothing new in it.
Glenn, I want to look at the comments that we heard in recent days and weeks from Donald Trump, a seeming shift away from somewhat unity with Russia towards real pressure. Do you think that 50-day deadline that Trump imposed before potential sanctions on Russia has played a part in these comments from the Kremlin?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't think that there's no shift from Trump. Let's be quite clear about it. Words don't actually mean anything unless they're backed up by hard action. And you know, there's nothing special happened since Trump actually said anything. It may do. It may do. We may see weapons suddenly start to come in the coming weeks. But his 50 days is just encouraging Russia, because he's saying that we're not going to do anything. And then even when we do something, we're only going to make minor sanctions on someone else. So there's no pain on Russia from his 50 days at all.
Yes.
So I think that you know, it's difficult.
Yes, absolutely. A difficult situation. I do want to briefly allude on the comments made by Volodymyr Zelensky in his nightly address, of course, talking about this proposal for talks next week. Do you have any optimism over these potential talks?
Rock in a hard place, because he needs American support. He needs Trump to actually to give him real support. And I just remind viewers at this stage that the amount of support that's gone to Ukraine remains still minuscule compared to the amount that was given to Iraq and Afghanistan. So we're still not looking at anything like the level that America could support support Ukraine. But so Zelensky has no choice. He has to keep Trump happy. He has to keep the sort of the general European public happy, that he is positive about peace, that he wants peace, that he wants this thing to move forward. But in reality, he knows that he's got no choice but to do this and to say this. But he can't afford to give up the lost territories, because the country wouldn't back him.
Yes, Glenn, do stay with us as we move from diplomacy now to the battlefields. And the General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces has reported that Russia has now lost over 1 million troops in the war with Ukraine since the beginning of the full-scale invasion on February the 24th, 2022. Ukrainian local media has said that the number includes 1,040 casualties the Russian forces suffered over the past day. In addition, the report states Russian equipment losses that include over 11,000 tanks, more than 23,000 armoured vehicles and nearly 47,000 drones, among other assets. Meanwhile, Russian state media has claimed that foreign mercenaries from Brazil and Colombia are actively fighting alongside Ukraine's 47th Separate Mechanized Brigade in the Sumy region. The media outlet was citing a Russian security official who said that the presence of these fighters was supported by video evidence posted online and by statements from captured Ukrainian soldiers. Well, Glenn, let's first look at these figures related to the number of Russian casualties. Do you think if these figures are true, this will impact Putin's war plans in any way, with over 1 million people, Russian soldiers now killed?
No, I don't think so, because Putin doesn't see people as human beings. In the Russian army, people are expendable. They're like ammunition. You fire ammunition and you fire people at the enemy. And it's always been like that. That's how they treat their people. I mean, many of the people who arrive at the front line are not trained, not given proper amount of ammunition to actually to do anything, and are not given proper equipment. And this is pretty standard. So I don't think that the figures are going to have any effect at all. He'll just look at Russia as a country and say, well, we've got another 170 million people, we're not doing badly anyway. So no, don't expect that figure to have any effect on Putin's thinking whatsoever.
Glenn, let's briefly touch before we let you go on these Russian state media reports claiming that foreign mercenaries from Brazil and Colombia are fighting with Ukraine. What's your thoughts on those allegations?
Well, I don't think one should call them allegations. I think it's a fact. There are volunteers fighting on the side of Ukraine. There have been lots of Americans, some Brits, basically people from all over the world who volunteered.
We seem to have lost Glenn there, but I want to thank him for joining us and taking the time to speak with us on both of those matters. We will, of course, continue to bring you all of the updates on the ongoing diplomatic talks in ending this conflict, but also then looking specifically at the front line as well. But we move on now, and Iran, Britain, France and Germany have agreed to resume talks over Tehran's nuclear program, that according to Iranian news agencies. The move comes after the three European nations warned that failure to restart talks could trigger the reimposition of international sanctions. While the sides have agreed in principle, key details remain unsettled. Consultations are ongoing over the time and location of the talks, which could take place as early as next week. This development marks the first sign of revived diplomacy amid rising tensions and international pressure on Iran to return to the negotiating table. Well, joining us will be Professor Gunnar Ratner, but while we wait for him, this, of course, in the wake of the 12-day war between Iran and Israel, with the United States also taking part in attacks on infrastructure that's both military and nuclear within Iran. To provide some context, of course, Steve Witkoff, the US Middle East envoy, was involved in negotiations and talks with Iran over their nuclear program. A wide consensus from Western nations that uranium enrichment had been at a level in Iran that was high enough to potentially be used for weapons as opposed to for domestic use. Now, Iran have denied this consistently. Iran have also said, following that 12-day war in which several of their key nuclear facilities and key nuclear scientists were hit, that talks with the US were meaningless. But there has been a push from not just the United States, but also other Western nations for negotiations to continue. And this all comes on the backdrop, of course, of a 2015 nuclear deal that was signed with the US, with European nations, China and Russia as well. The US, of course, withdrawing from that in 2018, but a potential risk to the other nations involved in that nuclear deal, with sanctions potentially being placed on Iran. We are now joined by Professor Rohan Gunnaratne, an international security expert who joins us from Singapore. Professor Gunnaratne, as always, thank you for taking the time to speak with us. Positive reports coming out of Iran that talks between key European nations and Iran on their nuclear program could be taking place. How significant, in the wake of such instability in that 12-day war, how significant is that announcement if it does come to pass?
It will be the most significant development because Iran has a total of 20 nuclear sites. Only 3 sites were attacked. Iran has a sprawling nuclear program that is beyond its civilian program that enriches uranium to different levels. So the main concern of the international community, it's not only America and Canada and Europe and the United Kingdom and Australia and New Zealand, not only the most advanced countries, but other countries, including Russia and China, is also keen that there is no proliferation of nuclear weapons. Because if Iran builds a nuclear capability, Saudi Arabia and many other countries will build similar capabilities. So it's a major step if it can be implemented.
Yes, absolutely. Let's bring it back now to that 12-day war and, of course, the impacts that have been had on Iranian nuclear facilities. Of course, pressure as well from the US relating to that. Do you think Iran are potentially now on the back foot after those strikes and that war, which also saw fatalities in both Israel and Iran? Do you think it's made Iran less likely to agree to a nuclear deal, given the extent of the operations from Israel and then the US?
Iran understands that the United States, working with Israel and also the European nations, can inflict very significant damage to Iran's program, will also cripple Iran to a point where Iran will only spiral down. So that is why Iran is keen to negotiate seriously, more seriously than before. The reason the United States joined Israel in the war is because Iran was playing for time, and Iran is notorious for doing so. But this time Iran knows that if it plays again, Israel inevitably will strike and the United States will join, and the degree of harm Iran will suffer will be much more brazen than what we have all witnessed in the most recent war.
Yes, Professor Gunaratne, I do want to look at Iran's nuclear program now. Of course, conflicting reports after the initial US bunker busting bomb strikes about how damaged the nuclear program had been. Some reports coming out more recently to say that there is still some activity from Iran. Do you think that the lack of complete wipeout of the Iranian nuclear program has made these potential conversations between Iran and European powers even more important?
Since the US and Israeli strikes, the satellite imagery by Maxar clearly demonstrates that Iran has started to restore their sites. Of course, the enriched uranium is deep in at least one of those locations. So what is significant to understand is that the enriched uranium is still intact. The centrifuge machines would have certainly suffered damage according to the analysis done by the nuclear experts. What is most important for the international community is to get the International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors access to those sites so that they will monitor those sites in so closely that Iran will not be able to restore the program. That is one step towards progress. The second step is, of course, to remove the enriched uranium out of Iran, because as long as Iran has access to enriched uranium, they will build a weapon, a functional nuclear weapon. So these are the two most important steps that the international community should take in cooperation and collaboration with the International Atomic Energy Authority inspectors.
Professor Rohan Gunaratne, thank you ever so much for joining us to discuss this topic. We will, of course, bring you all of the updates on that potential meeting that will take place between those four nations as we get it. But we move on now, and Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev has asked Russia to publicly admit that it accidentally shot down an Azerbaijani passenger plane in December last year, killing 38 people. Russian President Vladimir Putin had apologized at the time, calling it a tragic incident, but did not say Russia had fired on the aircraft. Speaking at a forum, Aliyev said that he wanted Moscow to formally acknowledge what happened, punish those responsible, pay compensation to victims' families, and reimburse for the destroyed aircraft. He said Azerbaijan has evidence of what happened and believes Russia does too. The plane, flight J28243, was flying from Baku to Grozny in Chechnya, Russia, when it crashed near Aktau in Kazakhstan after diverting from southern Russia, where Ukrainian drones were attacking several cities. Well, we are joined by my colleague, Asuma Katoka, anchor and correspondent with NewsX World, joining us live from the newsroom. Asuma, thank you very much for joining us. What more can you tell us about this incident, which of course didn't just have catastrophic repercussions for those who lost their lives and the families, but also now political ramifications?
Yes, we have to note that Azerbaijan and Russia used to be an ally before, but now tensions have been rising between them, and there has been back and forth of such comments from Aliyev, President Aliyev, as well as Putin, Russian President Vladimir Putin as well. This year, this is not the only time that Aliyev has mentioned about the plane crash in December that has killed 38 people, and it was from Russia's perspective or claims. Russia says that it is both of their responsibility, not just Russia's responsibility, and Russia has been short in well, at that time Russia did apologize for this plane crash, as it was, I guess, confused between the Russian army was confused between shooting and Ukrainian drones that were apparently in that region when the plane was hit by mistake, according to Russia. But this is not the only thing that has happened between Russia and Azerbaijan. This year, there was claims of ethnic cleansing from Russia's side, and two people died in custody in Azerbaijan. Azerbaijani people died in custody in Russia, and also a Russian media house was shut down in Baku. And this follows few of Russia and Azerbaijan's tension that has been rising. Also this year, Azerbaijan and Russia were to hold bilateral talks, which were cancelled, and Azerbaijan stopped Russia's Deputy Prime Minister from entering Baku as well. So this will be evolving.
Yes, absolutely, Asuma. Thank you very much for joining us. We move now away from that and head over to the Indo-Pacific. Speculation is growing over a possible high-stakes meeting between US President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un during the APEC summit in South Korea this October. Trump is expected at the summit in Gyeongju from October the 31st to November the 1st. Analysts say his unpredictable diplomacy and the recent US strike on Iran may push Kim to consider talks, but only under strict conditions, including halts to joint US-South Korea military drills. Trump and Kim last met in 2019. Pyongyang now aligns itself more with Russia, China and Iran, and has enshrined its nuclear status in its constitution. North Korea has shown little interest in renewed dialogue. Well, joining us to discuss this potential meeting and the wider ramifications of diplomacy between the US, North Korea and other nations, Sanjay Kumar, a senior journalist who is joining us from Seoul in South Korea. Sanjay, thank you ever so much for taking the time to speak with us. Can we first get your reaction to those comments relating to a potential US-North Korea meeting between both leaders, Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump?
Speculations are mounting in this part of the world, but it doesn't have still strong substance because it is not officially declared. So unless it is declared, we cannot comment on that yes, Trump is going to meet Kim. But invitations from South Korean side has already been sent to 20 APEC members. And of course, North Korea is not part of it. So it would be seen as a personal diplomacy, I would like to add. But it is going to be without a joint declaration, in my opinion, if you would ask. And I'm telling this with confidence because from Kim's perspective, they want some kind of leverage when it comes to the sanctions, I mean economic sanctions, and also the denuclearization demands that had been made by the trilateral cooperation countries, including U.S., Japan, and South Korea. So they means North Koreans would not like to go in this direction. But from the U.S. perspective, if Trump wants to meet Kim, definitely he would try to get something out of it. I mean, something concrete in the form of either a joint declaration, or you can say some kind of it is going to happen. This summit is going to happen in Gyeongju. So from South Korean perspective, also it would be very nice if we can see some kind of Gyeongju declaration, like Panmunjom declaration we had a few years ago.
Yes, Sanjay, I want to build on that. Sorry to interject. I do want to build on that because, of course, we know in the recent election that Lee Jae-myung spoke about potentially looking at North Korean ties. We know the US and South Korea are aligned with recent military drills, also including Japan in the region. How significant could South Korea-North Korea relationships be off the back of this potential meeting with Donald Trump? Could it find more common ground and unity between two nations who have been so divided in recent years?
That would be a milestone if this can be achieved. And President Lee Jae-myung, after getting elected, this has been one of his priorities to somehow pacify the tensions which is always there. And when he advocates for pragmatic diplomacy, these inter-Korean relations are always in the center as well. For Lee, it would be also a kind of win-win situation because at the same time he is going to send a very positive signal among the voters and among the people of Korea towards the perception on North Korea. Like the President Yoon had a very hawkish approach when it came to dealing with North Korea, and as personal diplomacy under Trump may happen, although it's likely to, it may happen, it is going to send a positive signal. And Lee Jae-myung would not like to miss any opportunity when there is a dialogue, because he believes in dialogue. So, if Trump-Kim meeting is finalized, I think South Korea is going to welcome it with open arms. And the Prime Minister here also, he has recently visited Gyeongju, the place where APEC summit is going to happen, and all the 20 countries most probably would not be against this kind of talk, because APEC countries also would like to send a message of peace towards the to the entire world. So if Trump-Kim meeting happens, definitely it is going to be very useful for South Korean government too. And we should not forget that President Lee is also interested in having a bilateral meeting with Trump as well in this APEC summit. So common grounds would be very strong if this happens.
Yes, and Sanjay, very briefly, we only have a minute or so left, but I do want to look at safety, security and regional stability. Of course, in our short read there, we did mention North Korea's alignment with Iran and with Russia and with China as well. Is this potentially, if this meeting does go ahead, do you think this could have wider ramifications for geopolitical stability, not just regional?
Well, North Korea would not go into this geopolitical security aspect, because they have to strengthen the relationship that they are undergoing through with Russia. So in any case, they don't want to offend Russia, which is likely to. And this is one of the reasons they are not publicly commenting on this. And unless something comes out, some official comment or a response from Kim comes out, it would be very early to be very euphoric. So let's see, maybe after a couple of months, when these things are going to be formalized and it will be officially in public, we can see from a positive angle that Kim is going to respond somehow.
Yes, Sanjay Kumar, thank you ever so much as always for joining us on the programme. We will, of course, bring you any developments on that potential meeting between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un. But now we move on, and Greek and Turkish Cypriots have marked the 51st anniversary of Turkey's 1974 invasion of Cyprus on Sunday, an event that divided the island and reshaped regional politics. Air raid sirens rang out across southern Cyprus at 5:30 a.m, the time Turkish forces landed in response to a Greece-backed coup. While Cyprus President Nikos Christodoulides attended a memorial for the fallen in the south, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan was expected to join celebrations in the north, home to the self-declared Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, recognised only by Ankara. Reunification efforts aimed at establishing a bizonal, bicommunal federation have failed for decades due to mistrust and suffering political vision. The unresolved conflict continues to strain ties between NATO allies Greece and Turkey and remains a sticking point in Turkey's EU aspirations. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres acknowledged that while talks on trust building will continue, the road ahead remains long. Well, that's all we have time for, but we will be back very shortly with more of your latest international news.